everybody so much for joining for the Aquarius season celebration. Whether you're watching in the replay or live, I appreciate you joining and being here and being part of the Spiritual Social Network community. So Aquarius season started today, January 19th, and it runs until February 18th. These dates change every year. It's usually around the 19th to the 22nd of a month when it changes, but it's just whatever the sun is up to in the exact moment that it changes signs. And obviously also with your time zone, it can be a different day if it falls around that midnight time. So a few fun facts about Aquarius. So Aquarius is an air sign. I know I did a poll on my Instagram today, and the majority of people thought Aquarius was a water sign. I also thought Aquarius was a water sign for a long time because the image is the water bearer, and the kind of the symbol or the glyph looks like waves. So it's very confusing, but we'll get into that a little bit more about the water bearer in a minute. But it's an air sign. So it's the other air signs are Gemini and Libra. And air rules the mind, communication, thought processes. So any of the air signs, they're people who really like to communicate. They think really clearly, but they can also overthink. And they can kind of get caught up in their heads and just kind of in this cycle of thinking about every angle. Like Libras with the scale, they think about all sides of an argument, and sometimes that can paralyze them from making a decision. Geminis are super communicative and they talk a lot, whereas Aquarius, because Aquarius is the 11th sign in the wheel, it's kind of the more mature, quote unquote mature, of the air signs. So it's not as outwardly communicative. It's more like Aquariuses have a really deep thought process, and they tend to be very aware of what's going on around them. Even if they don't talk a lot, they're picking up on a lot of cues. They're very observant. They're kind of making sense of everything in their head and making those decisions, but they often keep them to themselves. The few Aquariuses I know, my partner, his son, definitely fall into that category of like always, you can just like see the wheels in their head are turning like all of the time. So Aquarius is also a fixed sign. So our elements, we have earth, air, fire, water. Every one of those has a fixed sign, a mutable sign, and a cardinal sign. The cardinal sign is at the beginning of a season, so fall, winter, spring, summer. The mutable sign is in the middle of a season. I feel like I'm saying this backwards, but I don't think I am. No, the fixed sign is in the middle of the season, and then the mutable sign is at the end of a season. So because we're right in the middle of winter right now, we have, or if you're in the southern hemisphere in the middle of summer, Aquarius is a fixed sign. The other fixed signs are Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. And fixed signs are the planners, they're the organizer, they're the to-do list person. If we're in a group and you're planning something and you had one fixed sign, one cardinal sign, and one mutable sign, the cardinal sign would be the person coming up with the ideas. The fixed sign person would be the one actually creating the plan and creating the steps to take to accomplish the goal. And then the mutable sign would be the one adding the finishing touches, prettying it up, making it a little bit more fun. So everybody has an important role to play. So with it being a fixed air sign, Aquariuses can kind of become fixed on a thought or a belief, and it can be harder to change their mind. Kind of once they have their mind made up about something, they are on it, and it can be really difficult to get them to see things differently. Whereas Libras, they're looking at things from all different perspectives. Aquarius is, they see everything, they make their opinion or their judgment, and then they stick with it. Any questions so far? No? Does any of it resonate?
I would say, yeah.
I always am like so careful. So anyone watching the replay, Megan's an Aquarius. I'm always like, I always try to choose my words carefully, but especially if there's someone here live who is the sign, I'm like, oh, I don't want them to like just to come off the wrong way. But everything in life, not just astrology or a sign, but everything in life has, you know, a comfortable quality and an uncomfortable quality to it. Like I'm a Sagittarius, like we're optimistic, but sometimes that means that we like do things that we shouldn't because we're just like always hoping for the best and like end up in some like not so great situations. So everything has two sides of a coin. And if you're watching in the replay, if you have any questions, like send me a DM in Spiritual Social Network or make a post, because if you have a question, there's a good chance someone else has the same question. So posting questions publicly is always helpful for the people who maybe don't feel comfortable to ask questions themselves. So every sign is ruled by one or two planets. So originally Aquarius was ruled by Saturn. And you can kind of make a note of that because we'll talk about Saturn more at the end. But Saturn also rules Capricorn. So that's interesting for you, Megan. We were looking at your chart before this. You have a lot of Capricorn and you have a pretty good amount of Aquarius. So you have like a lot of Saturn energy in your chart. And Saturn is structure, routine, business, kind of keeping things that the way they've been, government, it's the father, it's like a masculine energy. That's something that I've been extremely resistant to most of my life. I just finished my Saturn return. So did you, Megan, because our Saturns are in Capricorn. And as soon as my Saturn return was over, we'll talk about Saturn returns later. But as soon as my Saturn return was over, I was like, oh, I'm cool with structure. I'm cool with routine. Like this all feels good to me now. I can see how having routine actually gives me more freedom, not less freedom. So there are Aquarians who can still be quite type A. They still like their structure. But once they discovered, so I think Saturn is the farthest planet that we can see with the human eye. So for, probably hundreds of years before they had telescopes, they only knew about so many planets. But once telescopes were invented, they were able to see that there's more planets out there. And they discovered Uranus. So Uranus is now the modern ruler of Aquarius. So Uranus rules emotional detachment, unpredictable energy, and rebellion. And if this doesn't describe an Aquarius, like, I don't know what does. So like Aquarians can come off as like detached or cold. But what I find is because they are processing so much through taking in information, understanding what's happening around them, they're just aware of everything. And because they have that water bearer as their representation, I find secretly Aquarians have a really deep and rich emotional life as well. So they're like seeing everything, they're processing it all, they're thinking about it, and they're processing it emotionally as well. So there's just so much going on inside of them all of the time that of course they're not like super warm and friendly and like the first person to give you a hug or the first person to be like, oh my God, you're here. Like that's going to be the Sagittarius or the Leo. They're the ones who are like sitting back, observing, understanding everything, but they have like the best perception about people and about situations. They're super intuitive because they're just constantly taking in so much information. They probably understand anybody better than that person understands themselves because they just get it. They just get people and they're seeing everything that we're not seeing. So that's why they can come off as like slightly cold or detached because they just have so much going on inside of them that that's their balance. So the god Uranus, or planets are named after gods. So he was the sky god and he was married to Gaia. She was the earth goddess. And they had 2 children, and Uranus hated his kids so much that he sent them down to earth and he didn't want to see them. And like Gaia like sent one of their kids up into the heavens to like kill his father. It's like this whole big dramatic story. But I find it interesting because it's that like rebellious, detached energy that was then attached to the planet Uranus and the sign of Aquarius. So other qualities that Aquarians have. So because they're an air sign, they're really good at communicating. They tend to like get right to the point. So they don't add a lot of extra stuff, but they get to the point, but they also communicate slowly just because they have so many thoughts that they're processing and emotions that they're processing all at the same time. Aquarius is also the sign of innovation. So it's really exciting for the time that we're in right now to see how the world is changing. Aquarius is about humanitarianism. We see protests and things that are about helping the whole and helping society rather than helping individuals. They're very logical and they can be more eccentric. Aquariuses are kind of described, or like the joke would be that they're aliens that have just come here in like a human body. They're kind of out there. They might be a little bit weird. They're eccentric. They are forward thinking. And then some other qualities that I was more surprised about when I started to learn about Aquarians is they're really about teamwork and about community. So we think like, oh, okay, like they're cold, they're detached, they're eccentric, but everything that they're doing is about helping other people and bringing people together to support each other for the good of all of us. Out of all the signs, they're the ones who really want that community. They're the ones who are like, they're going to start a commune and they're going to like MacGyver up some sort of rain catcher that'll then like clean the water and like irrigate the fields. Like they're very innovative and good with creating things. And then Aquarius rules technology as well. So even, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but even if you're not an Aquarius or you don't have any Aquarius in your chart, during Aquarian season, you're still affected by all of this energy. So if right now you're feeling like you have this idea for a new website or a new app or a new community you want to create, or you really feel drawn to like buy a farm and live off the land, like that is all Aquarius energy and it's affecting everybody during this season. And then just for fun, some famous Aquarians, we have Oprah, Alicia Keys, Dr. Dre, Bob Marley, Harry Styles, and Jennifer Aniston. So any questions about Aquarius? No? Okay. So other things that are happening during Aquarius season. So we have a full moon and a new moon, and then we have Mercury retrograde. So the full moon is on January 28th. So our full moon is always in the sign from 6 months previous. So the full moon right now will be in Leo, and it is a pair with the new moon that was in Leo in August. So Leo rules the inner child and our desire to be seen and heard. And full moons illuminate parts of ourselves and make them more obvious. So this moon is going to illuminate. Oh, I'm just going to let someone in. Hi, Karen. Feel free to turn your camera on if you want. You can leave it off as well. We're just getting into the full moon that is happening this month. So on January 28th, we have the full moon in Leo. So Leo, I'll just reiterate, Leo rules the inner child and our desires to be seen and heard. And full moons illuminate things. So right now, that desire to have other people see you and have other people understand you is going to be brought to the surface, and we're going to be able to feel it more clearly, but it's also the best time to work through that. So because it's paired up with the new moon in Leo that happened in August, you can reflect on anything that happened through the last 6 months that is connected to your inner child healing, maybe things that you didn't receive as a child that you wished you had, giving yourself that love now, allowing yourself to be seen and heard, seeing and hearing and understanding yourself, asking for that from others. And anything that we feel shameful or guilty about in these desires of wanting to be seen and heard, they end up coming out in ways that can seem prideful and boastful. So when we think of like the stereotypical Leo, like they're loud, they want to be the center of attention, they're wearing like beautiful clothes and they're showing themselves off and they're on stage, and like when we ignore our desire to be seen, then we show up as forcing people to pay attention to us. So that's like the shadow side of Leo energy. But when we have ourselves validated by ourselves and by others, and we really feel seen and like we're listened to and like people understand us, then we don't crave that attention in such an intense way. And everybody needs to have their needs met and to feel like they're part of a community, to feel good about ourselves. I know there's so much talk about like, don't look outside yourself, everything you need is within you. And while that's true, human beings are creatures that need human connection. Like we would literally die as babies if we didn't have other people caring for us and fulfilling our needs and understanding our cries and what that means. So we need human connection. We need people to validate us to feel good. It's just finding that balance between getting too much outward validation and not enough inward validation versus all inward and then closing yourself off from others. So during this full moon, there might be things brought up in your field of awareness. So thoughts might just show up in your head through your intuition. Your guides might place things on your path, books or pictures or movies from your childhood, or a conversation might come up that remind you of those hurt parts of your inner child. And this is your opportunity to honor your inner child, love them, ask them what they need, and give that to them. I did a practice a while ago with my business coach where we like closed our eyes and we got into a meditative state and we like asked our inner child to come forward. Like, what did she look like? What was she asking for? What did she need? And so you could do a practice like that during the full moon and write down the pain and the hurt. And then because it's Leo, that's a fire sign, it's a nice time to burn whatever it is that you're feeling like you need to release and let it go. And if you haven't already started doing inner child work, this is a really great time to start and heal that part of yourself. Is there any questions about the full moon? And if you're watching in the replay again, like, feel free to send me a message or post in the Spiritual Social Network any questions that you have. So the next event coming up in Aquarius season is Mercury Retrograde, everyone's favorite. So this is happening from January 30th to February 21st. And Amanda posted a really great post in the astrology topic in the Spiritual Social Network about retrogrades. I'll just give you like a quick overview here, but you can check that out. And Amanda is our new astrology leader. So if you have any like super specific questions about things, you can DM her or tag her in a post. So retrogrades, scientifically what they are is the forward movement of the planet slows down. So from our vantage point on Earth, it makes the planet look like it's moving backwards, but it's not. It's just like an optical illusion. But energetically, what this means is that the energy, whatever that planet is ruling in the sign that it's in, that energy kind of pauses and it kind of does a standstill. So we can really lean into the part of retrograde. So review, realign, repurpose, reflect. It's really, rather than being a time to start something new, it's about taking a look back and practicing the self-awareness of what has been, reflecting on it, really allowing yourself to process that before adding more onto your plate. So Mercury, it's like the most famous retrograde right now, I think, just because it happens so often. It happens about 3 times a year. And just for these like short 3-week cycles, whereas other planets, like the outer planets, they can go into retrograde for like 7 months. So it's not as obvious the effect that it's having on us. So Mercury rules communication, technology, and short distance travel. So these things are especially going to be affected during a retrograde season. So I noticed that like my autocorrect on my phone just goes haywire. Like I'll type animal and it'll be like Amsterdam. And I'm like, no, that like makes no sense. My bank's app gets messed up every time. You might find that you're just not able to communicate as clearly. There's more misunderstandings, and which can then lead to like tensions being higher. No one's really traveling right now, but short distance travel can be affected. So issues with your car, or maybe your train ticket, you accidentally bought it for the wrong day or showed up at the wrong time. Just little things like that just kind of like add stress to our day. And so because right now Mercury is in Aquarius, which is an air sign, communication. Aquarius also rules technology, just like Mercury. So your thoughts can be especially eccentric and innovative during this time. And right now we're in the shadow period of the retrograde. So it starts about 10 days before the retrograde starts. So we might already be starting to feel this energy now. But your thoughts will become more eccentric, more innovative, more of these like big picture ideas. But because of that retrograde, it's going to kind of push back a little bit and ask you to slow down. So before you like start your commune or decide to move off the grid, like really reflect on what you need to release from your past so that you can create space for these new innovations. So it's not so much about like, you can't have any new ideas, you can't do anything new for 3 weeks. It's just about clearing space from the past through this reflection. Maybe you realize that a project you've had sitting on the shelf for 3 years could be repurposed right now and help you in this new idea. So really just slowing down, pausing, and really sitting with that energy of needing to rush forwards if that's something that is in you. I know for me, I'm always like, go, 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 new idea. What can we do next? What can I start today? I always have like 15 projects on the go. So Mercury or retrogrades for me can like feel really uncomfortable because that goes against my nature, but they're also super beneficial for me because it helps me find that balance, because I know having 15 projects on the go at one time is not helpful for me overall. So it pulls me back towards the center and towards a more balanced state. Any questions about Mercury retrograde? No. So we have a new moon on February 11th. The new moon is always in the same sign as the sun. So new moons help us connect to our intuition, look at our shadow, and integrate things that have been happening. So during this new moon, specifically in Aquarius, this is a really great time to observe your feelings and then your fear of your feelings, because Aquarians feel really deeply, but they're not always feeling what they're feeling, if that makes sense. They're like pushing it away or trying to avoid it or distract themselves from it, but there's a lot in there that they're feeling. And then reflecting on what makes you feel like you need to run away. Aquarians really love freedom. Me being a Sagittarius, we also love freedom. My partner is an Aquarius. I think that's why we work so well together, is because we both get that sense of like change and enjoying it. But the flip side of enjoying freedom is that lots of times it can be based in fear, and it's running away from something rather than embracing something new. So this new moon will bring up things that make you reflect on those fears. And it pairs up really nicely with the Leo full moon. So if you take the time during the full moon to listen to your inner child, start understanding what they're missing, how to reparent them, how to see them and make them feel loved and comfortable, then during this new moon, it won't be as challenging, because for many people, the wounded inner child is the source of many of their fears, especially fears of getting close to others. So if we can pair up this energy, it'll be a really beautiful and big time for that inner child healing. But it takes work. Like that's our partnership with the universe or the divine, whatever you want to call it, is they give us the opportunity, they give us the signs, but we have to choose to take them and do something with them. It's not like you can just go out into the light of the full moon and magically have your inner child be healed. But your guides are going to drop hints. They're going to put things in your path to ask you to pick them up and do that work. And the more you ignore the work, the louder those signs eventually become, if it's work that you are meant to do in this life. Any questions about the new moon? No? All right. So we will talk about Saturn return. Karen, do you know what sign it's in?
Yeah, it's in Capricorn. I just finished mine.
Oh, cool. So did Megan and I. How do you feel after, now that it's done?
It's interesting because my boyfriend is starting his, so he's like, his life is on fire right now, and I'm just like, I told you. I don't know. I guess I'm still trying to figure out what lessons Daddy Saturn was trying to teach me. I kind of know, but I don't know yet.
Yeah, it's like a 3-year life-changing experience. It can definitely take time to integrate it for sure.
Yeah, like I know I was hit hard, but I just don't know like what was a lesson.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it'll come up. However, do you have much Capricorn in your chart other than your Saturn?
Yes, I think I have a stellium. It's Saturn, I think Neptune and
Mhm.
Uranus.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that sounds right. I'm just looking at Megan's chart here because we're all very close in age, the three of us. Then, yeah, Neptune and Uranus and Saturn is probably in
Yeah,
Capricorn
those
for
are the
all of
three.
us because they take years to change signs. Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, so if your Saturn is in Aquarius, you're in your Saturn return right now. And I think this is going to be a really cool one. So Saturn, a quick rundown with Saturn is so Saturn, like I said earlier, it rules structure, routine, business, government. It's the father, like Karen said, daddy Capricorn or daddy Saturn. But Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. So it also has those same energies. So when Saturn was in Capricorn up until December 17th of 2020, like big government stuff going on, billionaires being created, this huge divide being created between the 1% and everybody else. Now that Saturn's in Aquarius, that energy of tradition is being challenged by Aquarius's energy of innovation. So something that I find super interesting is that because Saturn was in retrograde for a little while, it actually went into Aquarius from March 21st of 2020 to July 1st. So what the fuck happened through those months? COVID, massive lockdowns all across the world, Black Lives Matter protests, statues being torn down, like so much Aquarius stuff happened, technology, we're caring about others and humanity and changing the structures to support all of the people. And then Saturn went into retrograde back into Capricorn from July 1st to December 16th. And all of that kind of like it didn't go away, but it definitely slowed down. And now that Saturn is in Aquarius for good until March 7th, this is going to be that big push of like shifting structures. Government's going to change hugely. Technology, like there's probably going to be some big innovations in how we connect with each other and how we build community online. And the one thing is that we're definitely going to have a lot of this friction that we're feeling right now because there's always going to be the people who don't want to change. They want to hold on to the way things were and they're going to resist the shift. And that just naturally causes tension between them and the people who are wanting to move forward and wanting to change. So it's going to be a really beautiful transformation time, but it's also not going to be easy. So with Saturn return, if you were born between February 1991 and January 1994, I don't have the exact day, but if you know your chart, or if you want to look up your chart, astro-charts.com, then you'll be able to find your exact Saturn. So if you were born between those dates, you're in your Saturn return right now. So what Saturn return is really the only return that we hear about. And I think it's because it's so significant in the time of your life that it shows up. So Saturn takes 29 and a half years to go all the way around the Earth. So a return is when the planet goes all the way around the Earth and comes back to the sign of your chart that you were born under. And so because it takes 29 and a half years, it usually, just depending on where you were born in its transit, it usually starts to show up, like the earliest would be 27, and then the latest would be like in your 29th year. So when we think about what, like if you take planets and astrology out of it, like what tends to happen between 27 and 30? People get married, people start to have kids, they get a mortgage, they buy a house, they've been in their job for a little while, they're kind of settling down. And that's what Saturn return is really about. It's about this shift into maturity and commitment and big life-changing decisions and plans. So it ends up being a challenging, but if you allow yourself to accept it and move through it, it's ultimately a huge period of growth and self-discovery. And it's when people resist it that they get the challenges and the issues. If you want to look into this more, there's something called the 27 Club. And it's like this, I don't know if it would be a conspiracy theory or what, but like this huge amount of musicians and artists and public figures that have died in their 27th year of life. And it's like this theory that it has to do with their Saturn return, from resisting it and not wanting to allow that shift into maturity and commitment to change. So people like Amy Winehouse, Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, people like really famous figures who the idea is that they didn't make it through their Saturn return. And I think a lot of people get scared of their Saturn return if they know about it ahead of time, because it's just this huge period of growth. But for myself, for example, what happened for me during my Saturn return, I started it in a relationship with someone else who I'm not with now. Spoiler alert. I thought we were going to get, we were going to have a kid and we were going to settle down. And then I realized like I could never meet my full potential with this person because they were very committed to keeping everything the same. That very small town energy of like, I've had the same friends since I was 5 years old and I've had the same job since I was 18 and I don't want anything to change ever. And I'm over here being like, I want things to change all the time. I want to be famous. I want to like say crazy things and like rock the boat. And he's like, no. So like, I realized like this isn't the path that I want to continue on. It's not going to lead me to my fullest potential. So we separated. And then I met my boyfriend now, like 3 weeks later, and like hugely, like instantly fell in love with each other. And then like it got tumultuous and just like all this personal growth. And my mom passed away and fucking COVID, it was just like all of these huge things that were stressful and were hard, but in the end taught me so much about myself and by allowing myself to learn that and go with the growth and not resist it. Now I'm on a path that's very clear, very aligned. I know where I'm going and what I want to do, and I have the support of the right people in my life. So that's just my example of what happened in my Saturn return. If anyone wants to share anything like important, it took me a while to like reflect on it. So like no pressure if you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? So anyone who has their Saturn in Aquarius is having your return right now. So that's an example of the types of things that could happen, but because mine was in Capricorn, so a lot of this family energy, masculine energy, relationships with men is like a huge fucking thing in my life. But because you have Aquarius, so yours is really going to be focused on friendships, your social life, your ideals and your beliefs, and the way you contribute to community. So these are things that you're going to be reflecting on, and you're going to be kind of tested in a good way of really reflecting on it and learning from it and deciding if it's something you want to continue on your path with you. So this might be a time when you start to realize that the friends that you've had for the last decade, you're outgrowing them, you're on a different path with them, and it finally feels right to let them go. Or it might even happen in a tumultuous way, but not resisting that release, letting that happen. Or if your work doesn't fulfill you, it doesn't feel meaningful or have an impact, this will be the time when that starts to matter to you, and you start to get the itch of looking for a new job or starting a business, something that impacts the world and has an effect, on society. And anyone who pushes you to act unethically or go against your morals or your values, this is when you'll start pushing back, maybe not be so easy. I'm not saying Aquarians are easy to walk over, definitely not, but like, you're going to be more confident in standing up for what you believe in and telling people like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I really don't care if you disagree with it or not. So if you're going through your Saturn return right now in Aquarius, those kind of friendships, values, work ethic, and the way that you have an impact on society are all going to be challenged to help you grow and to help you get onto that path. But because it's shaking up things that have kind of been in place for like several years, or things that we feel like we're committed to, and then all of a sudden we're questioning it, that's why it can feel uncomfortable. Any questions about Saturn return or anything you guys want to share? No?
I'll just share that, like, for me, my Saturn return, I felt like it was like a loss of self-identity. Um, and I feel like the lessons were probably just, I had to really look into my routines and my habits. And so there were a lot of things that I don't want to do. And I just found out that if I do them, it'll be easier.
I was literally saying that exact same thing to Megan before you came on. I was like, that's what I feel like the lesson of Saturn return was just like,
Just do it.
Routine.
Yeah. like for example, today, I cooked and I was just like, a part of me just wanted to like leave the dishes soaking, aka don't do them. But I was like, you know what? Let me just do them before I hop on the Zoom thing. And like, then tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and the dishes aren't still soaking. So yeah, I think that was like one of the biggest lessons.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I feel like I'm a grown up now. And I like, for me, because my birthday is so close. My birthday is November 28th. So it's so close to when the Saturn return finished. I was like, is it because I turned 30 that I'm a grown up now? And I was like, oh wait, no, it's Saturn return. And this is complicated part of astrology. So anyone watching on the replay, if you don't get it, like, feel free to message me or message Amanda. The house that your Saturn in is also going to affect which area it shows up. So the different houses rule different parts of our life. So say if your Saturn's in the first house, it'll be themes around independence and stepping out on your own and your fight or flight response. But if it's in the sixth house, it'll be more about your health and how you care for others and how you're of service. So the house will change a little bit. It's not to say that like everyone with a Saturn in Capricorn had the same experience, or everyone with a Saturn in Aquarius will have the same experience. That's the beauty of the birth chart, is it shows those interests. Why can't I think of the word intricities? No, you guys know what I mean. So the last thing I wanted to do is just kind of, I have Megan's birth chart here in front of me, so I share a little bit about what she has Aquarius, and then Karen, if you want to share yours. feel free to. So Megan has her sun, her Mercury, and her North Node in Aquarius. Karen, your North Node's probably in Aquarius as well, because it's one of those long lasting ones. My North Node is in Aquarius as well. It's my only Aquarius. But so because Megan's sun is in Aquarius, so anyone who has their sun in Aquarius, your sun is like really your personality. So the qualities of Aquarius show up more in people with their sun in Aquarius. So then your Mercury, for anyone who has their Mercury in Aquarius, so like we talked about, Mercury is about communication and technology, thought processes, the way we take in information. So people with their Mercury in Aquarius, they are really curious about technology and innovating, and they're thinking of, like, they're those people who would like pick up some like toy and like take apart the pieces and try to figure out how it works. Or if they're into fashion, like they're trying to make the item fit them better. Or if they're into cooking, they're researching all of the ingredients and they're trying to understand how all the ingredients work together. Like they're just very, they really like to think things through and understand how things work. And then for anyone who has their North Node in Aquarius, so our North Node represents kind of our purpose in this life. So I think our generation is so fun, the people who have our North Nodes in Aquarius, because like one of our big purposes in this lifetime is to innovate, is to create community. So whatever it is that you do for work, whether you have your own business or you work for someone else, like feeling like it's a family, feeling like you're understood there, feeling like you belong, feeling like you're a team, and maybe you organize like the team building events, or you just like to invite your coworkers out for drinks after work. Like those kinds of things are really important to people who have the North Node in Aquarius. And they're just very future thinking, innovative, inventive. Maybe they feel a bit misunderstood because they're doing things that people haven't seen before. So we always question things that we haven't seen before. We're a little hesitant when something's new. But it's our role to push society forward with the way that we invent ourselves and invent the communities and the spaces around us. Karen, do you know what other planets you have in Aquarius, or if you have any?
No, the only one I have is my North Node in Aquarius, and I feel like I'm struggling with that and my South Node in Leo, and with my Leo rising. So I know, like, my purpose is to be part of community, and like, but I'm having a hard time with that.
Yeah, it's really challenging right now because like we can't be with people. So I know for myself, it's like, well, how can I build community? But then I remember that Aquarius is also about innovation and technology. So using technology in new and different ways to create the community that we're searching for.
Do you feel like you, like, I don't know, I don't want to say struggle, but like, do you feel like you fight with your North Node and your South Node?
I fight with my South Node because Leo is my rising sign as well. So our South Node is our past lives and the kind of lessons we've already learned. For me, where I struggle with my South Node and with Leo energy in general is because I grew up in a environment that rewarded hard work and being productive and achieving and always doing things. And I grew up in a very stressful household. So there was no time for fun. There was no time for playfulness. Like, we have dishes to do, we have laundry to wash. Like, we don't have time to play this game right now. Like, so that's one of my big lessons right now is like learning how to have fun. Like, I literally don't know how to have fun. Like, I don't know how to relax. That's what I'm growing through right now. But I keep remembering, like, I'm like, okay, it's in there somewhere. I just got to get all the shit out of the way so it can come out.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like my mom, like she would every time I would be like, I'm bored. She was like, what do you mean you're bored? Like if you're bored, go clean your room or like take everything from the dresser and put it back in. And I was just like, no, I want to watch TV.
Yeah, totally. Like, I like would pride myself, like literally up until like this year, like 2020, would pride myself on never being bored. And then I was like, you don't have to be productive every single waking minute of the day. Like, you're allowed to just do something for fun. But I don't know how. I don't know how. I always have to turn it into a project. So that's how I messed up, but we all got our thing. Yeah, and so for anyone watching in the replay, if you want to know more about where Aquarius is in your chart, again, like message me, message Amanda, post it in the astrology topic in the Spiritual Social Network, and I'm happy to kind of give you a bit more information about how Aquarius affects you personally because of your chart. So before we go, do you guys have any last questions or anything you want to share? No? Okay, well, thank you guys so much, Megan and Karen, for joining live. And then thank you to everyone who is watching in the replay. Yeah, I'm just so grateful for all of you guys, because if it wasn't for you, I couldn't do any of this. So I'm very honored that you show up and allow me to live my purpose. So I hope you guys have a beautiful rest of your evening. Thank you again for joining. Bye.